So, you know, I make all kinds of promises that I don't keep, right? I mean, that's pretty much my trademark. And I think that I mentioned last time that the next time you saw this painting, it would be done. Or at least close to it. Well, 'twas not to be. 'Twas not to be. I decided to jump into these trees a little bit. You know, I'm going to back the camera off in a minute so you can see. I've actually got the sky pretty much finished. But, you know, once I did that, I thought, no, this needs more strength. This right here is the most important part of the painting. So it needs to be grouped. And what I had here was a bunch of, I don't know, a bunch of lack of structure. So, you know, I would have likened this band of trees to be sort of like a bunch of turkeys scratching in the dirt, all of them, you know, at the same time. Nobody could hear each other. There was no order, and there was no form. So I decided to highlight two of those turkeys and make them a little louder, a little more articulate. And I still like the idea of light catching these trees here, I bet, and then sweeping up a little bit. So what I'm doing right now is really just working on that. And that's really helping to organize things. So that it's a more cohesive structure. And I'm using the brush. I've touched a bit with a knife, but at the moment I'm just using a brush. And I'm using ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, and a bit of white. You know, if I were to try to go back into this area with the knife, because there is so much texture from the previous work that I did with the knife, I would end up with, well, the inability to control exactly where the color lays, and that's the last thing we need right now. Right now we need to know exactly where we can lay our colors and have control over where that happens. And that's what the brush provides now. Working with a brush is much easier than working with a knife. I guarantee you that. You know, for you know, with what I'm doing right now anyway. Okay, let's take that down a notch. I'm getting pretty, I'm staying pretty high value. So as we work down the tree, and we're not worried about getting it exactly right, okay? We're really not going to do that. Getting things exactly right pretty much defeats the purpose of Impressionist painting. Slide back and have a look at that. Okay. That's okay. We'll do this. We'll do this. I think more or less that's good now. Because now we have some form, you know? These are sort of mid-tones between this and this, which is fine. I really wanted these two trees to be more prominent, and they are now. Actually, let me raise the value there in a couple of spots. Uh, okay, I think that'll do. I did not get to the rocks yet because once I had finished the sky, I realized I needed to make this, I needed to strengthen this area up here. I needed to just give it a little more oomph and really more organization. Okay, now I'm going to back the camera off and blither for a moment about plans that I have yet for, well, you already know my plans for the rock, but for the ice and the snow. I suppose I should straighten out my easel here. Oops. That should do the job. And drop the painting. Okay. What am I doing? I have to be able to see the viewfinder. Otherwise I'll just be lost in my own head. Yeah, these rocks just ignore. I haven't done anything to them yet. That's my next project, you know. But the sky now here, I've feathered it off a little bit, just with a few hints of these colors. You know, it's a little raw umber, some white, hints of cobalt blue, a bit of alizarin crimson, and some yellow ochre in places. And I've just brought it up a little bit, just a little bit, because the colors are so much warmer. They appear to be much more in front and of these colors, but of this sky here. But they're not super high value, you know. But it sort of unites them with everything. I put a little more light back here as well. I felt it would do well to do that. It would work well for the painting. Because then, by the time I'd done that, I thought, okay, now we put a little more pop on these trees. A little more organization. Now you can see the line of shadow here, and you can see, obviously, that these trees look a little more organized rather than just a bunch of blithering turkeys disorganized wandering around in the yard, right? So, now what I'm going to do is, well, not now, but soon. Okay, next to the rocks. That's fine. What I'm also going to do is lay color across here, right to the edge of these rocks, of this shoreline. I don't want it to be too high a value, because if I make it very high value where it's adjunct to these rocks, it'll make these pop. I don't want that. I want the strength to remain there. But I would like more of a feeling of light coming from the right and sliding right across from behind these rocks over to here. And I'm going to carry some of these higher value blues, greenish blues, down here as well, and probably off to the right a little bit. You know, subtle changes now, but they all, I think, help. It feels, you know, when I looked at the painting this morning, even withstanding all the things that I plan to do with it, so today or over the next couple of days, I still felt as though the area of interest, let's call it that, okay? You could say it's a focal area, but really, you know, the area of highest interest still felt very compressed and still very much in a band, which would have been fine if this canvas were, you know, 4 inches shorter. Great, but it's not. So what I wanted, that's why I extended the sky a little bit, and that's also why I want to bring the light on the water down a little bit. These rocks are in place, that's fine, I'm happy with them, but they don't catch much light. I don't want them to catch much light, I want the water to catch a little more light. So, you know, spreading our values down a little bit here maybe. come up into the sky a little bit, I can see that's entirely a reasonable thing to do. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Again, not a whole lot to show for it, but I went and visited a fellow artist this morning. We were chatting about some of his work and the directions he's taking, and that was interesting. I'm talking to you, Scott. Anyway, good visit. It was nice. It was a good chat. And he actually filled me in more in depth about the Mormon settlements, like in Utah, and some of their history, which I also found really interesting. I didn't know about that. I knew some of it, but not to the extent. He's got quite a bit of knowledge in that area. So always up for an interesting conversation. So that was good. If I play on this yet tonight and make any significant progress, I'll probably put it out. I'll probably publish it on YouTube tomorrow. And if not, then we'll see you next week. Have a good rest of your weekend.